Hey now, community changers, and welcome back to NKay Solutions. My name is Kyndal, and I am here to help women take their vision to community change by creating a community organization that changes lives and produces purpose. I am so honored to be before you again another week to talk about what problem does your community organization solve. This is a part of my 10 questions framework series, and I am just having such joy with sharing some of these things that have really helped me and helped other organizations that I've helped in the past. Not only allow them to take their vision to community change by allowing them to get unstuck and have them actually move forward with their organization, but if they already had an organization, it helps them continue on because we know that it can be, overwhelming sometimes. And sometimes we want to give up. And with these 10 questions framework and the things that I am sharing, I've been able to help people keep moving in their vision to community change. So, without further ado, we are going to go ahead and get started. But before we do, if you have not seen this channel before, I encourage you to check out a few videos. Have you decided to start a community organization? And if so, I encourage you to check out the 10 questions framework video where I talk about each of these 10 questions that I'm going through each week. So if you kind of want to have a heads up to know exactly where she come up with these questions, check that video out. The second one is, what kind of community organization are you starting? If you have decided to start a community organization, I have a video on the 3 most common community organizations that people start so that you can kind of get a feel of what kind of organization you're interested in starting or where your organization may lie. I encourage you to check that out. And last but not least, I encourage you to check out the video before this one, is your why and your story, and why those two things are so important, because it brings us to our topic today. Today, we're going to be talking about, what problem does your community organization solve? What problem does it solve? We talked a little bit about that last week in our story, right? We all at some point or had an issue, or we knew somebody that had an issue, and that issue was able to be solved to take them from point A to point Z. Okay, what was that problem? And today we're going to talk about why it is important for you to do the research so that you know the key problem that you are solving with your community org. So, what problem are you seeking to solve with your community organization? I want you to literally think about that. What problem are you seeking to solve with your community organization? Um, for instance, when I used to work for Sister Friends, our problem we sought to solve was the high infant mortality rate in our particular community. Unfortunately, in that area, we had high rates of infant mortality, which is a baby dying before age 1. And it was high in the African American community. And that was the community that we wanted to target and we wanted to help. So the problem was the infant mortality rate, right? In African American babies. How did we take that problem and take it to a solution? So, your community organization should take your community from the problem that they have, and it should provide a solution to take them to the resolved matter, to where they're in a better place after they've dealt with your community organization, whether it's for one day or whether it's for a period of time. Your organization should be solving a particular problem. And today we're going to talk about what that particular problem is, solidifying what your problem is that your community organization is solving. How will you know the problem you need to solve? And before we get started, I want you to know these two things. One, that the vision you have for your community organization is doable. Do not be afraid, okay? Do not be afraid. We may have a huge vision, and we may feel like, maybe it's not time for this. Maybe I'm not the person for it. Maybe I can't bring it forth for so many reasons, right? We're moving beyond fear. It's doable, boo. And you know why it's going to be doable? Because you're going to do the research. You're going to do the research. Do not do the research. A lot of times we go in and I know that, okay, for instance, I'll use Sister Friends for example. I know that the infant mortality rate is high. I know. So a lot of times that looks like our moms not going to their doctor's appointments, okay? And because they weren't going to their doctor's appointments, doctors weren't able to catch things that they probably could have caught during prenatal care that may have been able to be beneficial to our mom, like catching diabetes, which is gestational diabetes during pregnancy, or hypertension, like preeclampsia. So these things are very important to catch during pregnancy, right? And so in our heads, we're thinking, okay, we got to get these young ladies to the doctor. We got to encourage, we've got to let them know why it's so important for them to get to the doctor. But let me tell you something. You can talk to a woman until you're blue in the face about why it's important for her to go to the doctor, why it's important for her to get her prenatal care, right? But what if mom has no transportation? And that is where the research comes in, because the research is going to allow you to provide the needed resource for your community that's going to bring them in so that you can then provide them with what you really want to give them. Okay? So, in that, we had to do some things. We had to figure out, all right, mom's just not sitting here listening to us talk about the importance of them going to their prenatal appointments because they're still not going. So here are some things that we tried, and here are some things that I ask you to try. One, talk to people that you know have had the experience that is specific to the problem you wish to solve. So that's what we did. We started talking to moms that had this experience to see why exactly they weren't making it to their doctor's appointments. A lot of them said they weren't able to make it to their doctor's appointments because they had no transportation. If we didn't ask the question, we wouldn't have known what was the problem. So the problem, yes, was still infant mortality. But there's an underlining issue. And the underlining issue was that they didn't have transportation. So what did we do next? We started looking into what other organizations were doing to try and solve this problem. Now, there's nothing wrong with you doing that, because let me help you remember, there is no competition in serving. So this is perfectly okay. Perfectly okay. And we found that The other organizations were having the same issue. It didn't matter that they had nurses on board, it didn't matter that they had social workers, community health workers, doulas. All of these people can be involved in your care. But if ain't nobody giving you a ride, honey, you're not going to get to your doctor's appointment, which means you're not getting the prenatal care. So we were able to be blessed with money to be able to provide moms with not just transportation by bus tickets or by their insurance, because that could be a whole nother issue. But we were able to provide transportation through Lyft. And because we were able to provide that transportation through Lyft, and they were appreciative of it, they were able to be more susceptible to coming to one of our educational events where we talked about the importance of their prenatal care and the importance of them going to the doctor so that the doctor can find things out during their pregnancy early if there is anything wrong, right? And to try and prevent these additional issues for the mom and for the baby that could cause premature birth and that could cause infant mortality. Alongside of that, we did more and more research, and you can do more and more research too. Don't be afraid to utilize the internet. Don't be afraid to Google, to YouTube, and to even use TikTok. I was on TikTok the other day, and people were looking up organizations that they could go to get Christmas help. It's on TikTok. So don't be afraid to look up what exactly the problem is and see how the community is reaching out looking for how to solve that problem. Don't be afraid to read research articles that you find on the internet. And another thing that really helps, especially if you are a community organization that's going to provide resources, especially tangible resources, don't be afraid to call 211 or to view 211's website. If you don't know what 211 is, it's a universal phone number that people can call when they have a problem or needs that are more social service. And when I say they're more social service, maybe they don't have food. Maybe they don't have clothes. Okay? Maybe they don't know how to write a resume. Maybe they need help with their rent or they just had a fire. So they reach out to 211 to find these kind of resources. And you can see what kind of resources 211 is providing to solve the problem. And that'll help you see what problems your community are having. And it'll help you solidify exactly what your problem is that your community organization is going to solve. Don't be afraid to use the Census Bureau data. And don't forget your story and your vision. Keep that in mind. Because sometimes we can do research and then we start getting derailed away from what our key vision is. And then we start saying, oh, well, I just really want to provide what they want. Are you passionate about what they want? You can provide what the community wants. Still, just knowing what problems they are facing will help you better address those needs to reel them into what it is you really want to get. Like I said, we wanted to prevent infant mortality. And one of the ways we found that was an issue was moms getting to and from their doctor's appointments. Well, we were giving out so much education, right? The women that we were pairing the young ladies with were calling, checking on them, making sure that they were okay, which was nice. But in the midst of them calling, checking on them, seeing they were okay, they wasn't going to their doctor's appointments. And we found out through research why they weren't going through their doctor's appointments, which was because they didn't have transportation. and we were blessed to get a resource to provide them with transportation, and then they were more open and receptive to receive the actual education we wanted to give. So doing the research doesn't mean that the problem that you initially had in mind that you wanted to solve, and maybe the community is not ready, doesn't mean that you can't give it to them. Doesn't mean that you can't help them with that problem. You still can, but you may have to um, try and get to them first through what is keeping them up at night. I learned that from my old manager, from Sister Friends. She said, find out what is keeping your moms up at night. And let's see if there's any way that we can address those issues. And then maybe they'll be more willing and receptive to come to the other things that we have to offer and see this amazing program that we want to give to our community. Okay? So try these things. Why should you do the research? Because one, you get better at understanding what the community actually needs right now. So maybe what you have been through was years ago. And yeah, maybe the problem still does exist, but there might be a different way you can approach it. Okay? And when I say that as in COVID was a very good example, right? People still need services, but everything was shut down. So a lot of organizations had to figure out a way that they could still serve their community currently. And the way that a lot of organizations figured out how they could still serve the community currently was virtually. Some of that ended up being through Zoom. Some of that, which means they had meetings or whatever with their community through Zoom. Okay. If they weren't able to meet in person to grab the items that they needed, then people brought them to their home and placed them on their porch. You see what I'm saying? You see why it's so important to do the research? So that you know currently how to provide services to solve the problem, to get your community from one place that they're at to the place you want them to be. It's going to help you provide effective resources for your community and give them what they want so they can get what they need. Okay? The community needs you. And I know I say this every video, but I'm serious. I'm real about it. The community needs you. Don't be afraid to do this process. Don't be afraid to do it. It's no reason why you should not move forward with your community organization. For one, I'm here and I'm open and willing and waiting to help you every step of the way. Why? Because I want to see you take your vision to community change, because I know that it's going to change somebody's life and produce purpose. I am a product of what a community organization can do. So don't sit on it. Do not do that. I know I say that every video. I'm going to keep saying it. I want you to grab the 10 questions foundation framework workbook so that you have those questions to kind of, start getting your brain churning about your community organization and what you want to offer. But I also want you to complete the Do the Research Google Doc. It's going to walk you through how you can do the research to find out what your community needs. It's going to have resources on there that you can use. And I want you to complete that so that you can find out the real problem. And when we're finding out the real problem, we're finding out what is the barrier that is causing the problem, right? Yes. Because next week we're going to talk about what resource will your community organization provide. And that resource is going to eliminate that barrier so you can solve the problem. Okay? So you can take your community from here, having an issue, to here, to having that issue resolved. So do the research Google Doc so that you can figure out exactly the key problem that you're going to solve. And it's not hard. If you need help, y'all know how to reach me. You can find me on Instagram. You can email me. You can go to my website. And if you need to book a consultation with me, you can do that. You can go to my website. I am more than happy to spend an hour with you talking about and ironing out your vision so that we can move it forward. Or if you've already started your vision and you need to, get things tweaked, or you need to figure out what's overwhelming you, or why things are not moving the way you envisioned it, holla at your girl. I am here. I am open. I am willing, and I am waiting to serve you. I am here to serve because I know if I serve you, I know that you're going to be serving God's community. You're going to be serving God's people. And God's people need you. Don't wait on this, sis. Until next time, take your vision to community change so that you can change lives and produce purpose. Peace, family.